Can I have a look?
If things could be as simple as that, selling fruit or vegetables to a European buyer is easy if the visitor is in front of you.
Thank you.
But when it comes to exporting produce from the south to Europe, that's another story. A story that began in 2001 with the launch of PIP, a program for economic cooperation financed by the European Development Fund. The PIP helps producers and exporters in African, Caribbean and Pacific countries to follow good agricultural practices. We chose to show one example from among many, the Kenyan bean industry. It's 6 a.m. in Kawani, a small Kenyan village. As usual, like millions of women across the world, Tina is helping her daughter get ready for school. The young woman takes the track leading to her workplace. She arrives there 40 minutes later. It's a small 5-hectare farm employing around 20 people. The rules for production and hygiene are strict because on this farm, beans are grown for export.
My name is Marin Nzula. I've got 5 kids. I'm happy with this job. It helps me improve my living conditions, send my children to school. We've set up a fund with the other women pickers. Everyone gives something, and we can help those who need money at a certain point.
Pickers are paid according to the volume of beans they pick. But they don't just pick them, they also have to grade them. Only perfectly selected and graded beans will be allowed to travel by truck to Nairobi's packing houses. Tina earns around €1.50 from Francis Kelly, the farmer who employs her.
Okay, this is my grading shed. I used a lot of effort to make it the way it is. I also trained my graders how to grade extra fine and fine beans. We have to be trained on how to keep our produce clean and how to keep them as they want. So there is a standard which you need to attain in order to get a certification to export the produce. I depend on these beans. Also the pickers and whoever works with the farm depends on this produce. So if they terminate my contract, of course I'll lose. Yeah.
To be able to deliver exportable beans, producers like Francis must stick to very strict rules. They must have infrastructure such as charcoal-powered cold rooms, toilets for the staff, or a locked place to store pesticides. The intention in itself is commendable, but few small-scale producers can invest in such infrastructure. Furthermore, these requirements rarely take into account local conditions. The requirements of the supermarkets are the same for both European and African producers. The resources needed to implement them are the same, but in very different circumstances.
Yeah, it is a shade for night watchmen.
Why, you have robbers?
Yeah, no, because of hippos. We have papers here.
In the area of the Machacos Hills, some producers are even less well off than Francis. Mutula Mengi owns less than 1 hectare and his nephews work the land. The PIP pays particular attention to supporting small-scale producers to help them adopt good agricultural practices, especially as regards the use of pesticides. In fact, at the outset, the PIP was focused on the pesticide issue, but the program has since expanded its field of activities. Last year, Mr. Mengi invested his profits into building this shed.
This is my chemical shed. I use pesticides that I've been advised to spray over my plot. I respect the amounts. There are maximum limits.
European regulations have set maximum pesticide residue limits. The aim of the European Union was to protect its consumers, but in reality, it has also had a positive impact on methods of production, which have tended to become more and more aware and careful of pesticide users and the environment. In the beginning, people were frightened by the changes to the regulations, but when combined with the technical assistance provided by the PIP, it has turned into an opportunity for the ACP horticultural sector to modernize. It's a win-win deal for both consumers and producers. The problem is that nowadays, European supermarkets have raised the stakes by launching private standards that are very difficult for ACP players to meet. Producers receive regular visits from technical advisors. Luke works for a company that buys Francis's produce before exporting it. He makes sure everything is going smoothly.
Wow. How is Francis?
Fine.
Morning.
Morning too.
Okay, Dolly?
How are you?
I'm fine. So how is work?
Work's not bad.
Okay. We have a system whereby we provide the farmer with a signboard, as you can see on behind me. This information will help us for the purpose of traceability.
Traceability is one of the topics Luke studied during training sessions run by the PIP. In 28 African, Caribbean and Pacific countries, technical staff learn good agricultural practice. Here, trainer Henry Wainwright is giving a demonstration showing how a sprayer works. But soon he hands over to Ricky Aguda, one of his former pupils, who has now become a teacher himself. International expertise has progressively been replaced by local experts, as their capacity has been strengthened. More than 80% of PIP assignments are now carried out by local experts.
Good luck. Thanks. You sit down. You give your don't, you sit down. So this is sporadic.
Ricky attended a training course on how to facilitate and animate in order to get his audience interested. He uses training materials and tools created by the PIP. Notably, the PIP has produced crop protocols for every fruit and vegetable produced in ACP countries, from Ghana's pineapples to mangoes in the Dominican Republic and peppers in Uganda. The training is play-based with lots of images. It aims to be accessible right through to the smallholders. Young people undergoing training today will become the trainers for the country's horticultural companies in the future. This is one of the strengths of the program. It cascades down through all levels of the horticultural supply chain.
To myself, I'm a Kenyan Maasai tribe. Maasai. We transport fresh beans, transporting in the truck, packed, and then to the plane, then to the various parts of other countries.
A truck comes to collect the beans. Every crate is labeled with the mandatory red sticker that details all the information needed for product traceability, right down to the plot of land where the vegetables grew. Most of the packing houses are in Nairobi, where trucks drive even late into the night. The crates of beans are stocked in cold rooms until the graders start work. Here again, production standards are draconian, and the workers' hands are disinfected several times a day.
My name is Gideon Moora. I'm a packhouse manager, and my main responsibility is to ensure our products meet the customer specification as well as the food safety issues according to the EU regulations. We learned through the hand of a PIP program, whereby we've been trained on food safety, food hygiene, traceability, to comply mainly with the Europe GAP requirements at the farm level, as well as HACCP at the processing level. And we've also gone a mile ahead. We are implementing a BRC standard, which we are incorporating HACCP that we really gained from the PIP program.
Mr. Maura attended a PIP training session given by experts in food safety control systems. His qualifications benefit the whole company, which can now address the requirements of the European market. Some companies are able to stick Europe GAP labels on their boxes. Contrary to what you might think on reading the name, the Europe GAP label is not an official European certificate. It is a private label scheme belonging to a coalition of retailers, but it has supplanted the EU regulations in the minds of exporters. Exporters are now engaged on a perpetual struggle to meet the requirements of supermarkets, which go much further than the food safety requirements of the European institutions. Even when they have invested heavily in up-to-date production lines, ACP companies are never safe from new compliance criteria. One of the main aims of the program is to inform companies as soon as possible and to help them face these new challenges. These issues clearly don't just affect green beans from Kenya. All horticultural products from the south are affected by the same constraints to export.
We are going to add the other one, yeah?
Kenyan beans travel by plane, and this is currently a matter of controversy in Europe. The issue of food miles has now become a challenge for exporters. On the subject of carbon emissions, ACP exporters argue that most produce travels in the hold on normal passenger planes, so there are no additional carbon emissions. Some see this affair as a disguised trade barrier. The beans reach their final destination, supermarket shelves. This is a vegetable much appreciated by consumers as they don't find equivalent produce grown in Europe. This is a good achievement for the PIP, which has been able to guide Kenyan producers. They've succeeded in overcoming all the obstacles, and they produce a quality product which here proudly displays its traceability.
Madame Kuhleman, c'est demandé caisse 9, s'il vous plaît. Madame Kuhleman, caisse 9, reprise marchandise, merci.
The beans that Francis sold for 50 cents a kilo are now 14 times more expensive. Supermarkets pride themselves on supporting ACP producers. Mr. Palmadias is purchasing manager for a big European supermarket chain.
These beans are an example of an African product. In fact, we buy the beans in Kenya, in this precise case from certified producers. We ask for EUREP-GAP certification in good agricultural practices in order to have all the guarantees from an independent certification body that verifies that producers respect the current standards as regards pesticides, as well as the local employment legislation. I honestly think we're in an irreversible phase of evolution in sustainable farming, where we have to take a position in order to stimulate and to defend those producers who make an effort to improve and who are moving in the right direction to protect the environment and to deliver quality products. We can't just allow anyone to do whatever they like. In any case, we refuse to do business with producers who work without any guarantee.
To be in touch with the requirements of the European market and to be as close as possible to the EU institutions, the headquarters of the PIP are in Brussels, near the offices of the European Commission. The PIP is financed by the EU to the tune of 33.8 million euros. The ACP group of states and the European Commission have entrusted COLI ACP with the implementation of the program. Guy Stinglambert, the program manager, describes the COLI ACP.
COLI ACP is an interprofessional organization unique in its kind because it brings together ACP and European operators. Producers and exporters are on one side and importers are on the other.
The originality of the program, and perhaps the reason for its success, is that it draws together both the private and public sectors. The PIP is present in 28 African, Caribbean, and even Pacific countries, including Papua New Guinea. Today, the team is greeting a pineapple producer from West Africa.
Je dis une centaine depuis environ 3 ans et il y a de plus en plus certains producteurs qui manifestent l'intérêt de travailler avec nous.
The men and women around the table have been working for 6 years to maintain access for ACP producers and exporters to the European market. Back in Kenya, people are also working to support producers. COLI ACP has set up task forces in every country. These platforms provide a space where all the different players involved in the horticultural sector can come together. Many of their members have also benefited from capacity building. Public and private sectors talk and together identify new challenges. They decide what measures to take in order to meet these challenges in the most efficient manner. The Kenyan Ministry of Agriculture, based in Nairobi, is well aware of the role the PIP has played in facilitating access by Kenyan companies to the European market. At least Dr. Songa, Permanent Secretary, seems to be convinced.
We value the support of PIP, and I would like to request that PIP continues to work with us until such time that the structures we are trying to put in place are able to sustain themselves before probably they start pulling out. This industry supports a lot of small-scale holders. A lot of livelihoods rely on this horticulture sector, which, as you know, is labor-intensive.
In the fruit and vegetable sector, not all producers are small-scale. Some farms cover several hundred hectares and work with modern infrastructures. These farms provide employment for a large workforce. Like the others, they also get the support of the PIP to bring them up to standard, and particularly for the training of company staff.
All of that.
The PIP visits Tiku Shah, the president of the Fresh Produce Exporters Association of Kenya.
It's going to be very important that we have a second phase coming through. It's going to ensure that we have very good sustainability going on of the smallholders especially. Horticulture is an important part of the economy. It creates lots of employment, it employs women, we have new products, and it's not just vegetables and fruits, it's also flowers. So where we want market access, it's very important. Where we need to talk about regulations, it's very important that we talk together on SPS issues, on carbon emissions, on common issues, that we can then have one resolution in place and everybody can export. So very important that we have very strong associations within Europe, based in Europe.
Kenyan beans are one success story among many. Horticultural products from African, Caribbean and Pacific countries still find new markets in Europe. The establishment of a sustainable industry provides jobs and wealth in the south, thus contributing towards the Millennium Development Goals. Thanks to the support of the EU and the ACP Secretariat, the PIP has been able to go beyond its original objectives. Today, the program brings together some 90% of the industry's players. Quite an achievement in sustainable co-development. But tomorrow, exporters today are engaged in a struggle with European supermarkets who are imposing ever more stringent demands, putting at risk the position of the producers. This network that the COLI ACP has put in place is ready to react.
Mambo ya pili njoo kwake Yesu uokolewe.